I am not recording this video from my office at home, but I am on the top of the hill Cumorah. And for those of you who have not been here, it is as amazing as you would expect it to be. It's an incredible place. The feeling here is undeniable. It's testifying of the truthfulness of the things that took place here. Behind me, you see the Angel Moroni monument. That's to remind us of some of the sacred things that did take place here. It was here where annually Joseph would come and be tutored and taught by that Angel Moroni, teaching him how to be a prophet of the restoration, to be prepared to fulfill that calling and responsibility that the Lord had entrusted him with. Of course, the most sacred and significant event that took place here at the hill is when Joseph took the plates that had been buried by that Angel Moroni 1400 years previous, and he took them home. And over the course of several events and some interesting fun stories that I've already shared with you, he translated that ancient record into the English language so that we can have access to another testament of Jesus Christ. Well, today in Beyond Come Follow Me, I've got a little itinerary, and it goes like this. Last week I told you that I had an announcement I was really excited to share with you. I'm going to do that now. I'm also, while I'm here in Palmyra, I'm going to take you on a very brief point of view tour. Point of view meaning I'm not going to be in the picture, but I'm going to walk you through the sites so that you can see all the places of where the stories that I've told you over the past several months took place. I hope that you'll find that to be interesting. And then, of course, I'll tell you the historical stories and the context relevant to the revelations that we're studying this week in our Come Follow Me lessons. Over the last several months, I have been thinking about you. This Beyond Come Follow Me series grew out of nothing. I started telling stories thinking that maybe some friends and family members might give me a courtesy view and watch the video, maybe a handful of them. I had no idea that it would be seen by people outside of my circle of family and friends. But it has been, and I've been glad to do that, and I've been thrilled to be able to share my testimony and the stories of the gospel of Jesus Christ, the history of the church, with so many of you, and so many of you literally throughout the world. It's amazing to me, and it's very humbling. As I've been thinking about you and you viewing these videos, I'm impressed. I'm impressed by you. Now, we have been asked to do our Come Follow Me lessons by the Lord, and it's been reiterated that we need to do that by our general authorities and our local leaders. And in the front pages of our Come Follow Me manuals, the Lord specifies the specific blessings that are available to those who participate in the Come Follow Me weekly lessons. But you're more than that. You've decided that you want to do a little bit more, go beyond the requirement or what's being asked of us to do, be it a requirement or not. But we have our Come Follow Me lesson, and you're doing that, and then you're seeking out more. And that's evidenced by you coming and listening to the Beyond Come Follow Me. I tell frequently in these videos that I don't do the Come Follow Me lessons for you because that's your job. I just do some supplementary storytelling. So you're doing your Come Follow Me, you're doing what's right, you're doing what's being asked of you, and then you're looking to go more. You're wanting to get more, to gain more, to find a way to boost your faith and your testimony, your opportunities to hear Him. And so you're looking beyond the traditional lesson manual for more. And that's admirable, me to you. I'm admired by that effort. And it's commendable that you are doing such a wonderful thing. So I think of you with that faith, which leads you to do more than you're being asked to do, which translates into spiritual power. Now, each of these videos you could see through the history, they'll be viewed about 35 or 40,000 times, which again is incredible and very humbling. And I credit all of that to you. There's nothing I say or do that is attracting so many people. It's that there's so many people that are out there searching for more because they have the faith and the spiritual capacity and the desire to increase their spiritual power. So when I look at a video and I say, well, there's 35,000 or 40,000 views, but what does that really mean? A lot of people tell me they watch it individually on their own. My wife, she puts her headphones in and she'll listen to it each week as she's working around the house. I know my brother, every Monday morning, he listens to it while he's exercising on his own. But then I know that there's a lot of people who watch as couples or perhaps friends. I know of a family just around the corner from me who periodically will watch it Beyond Come Follow Me. And that's a family of 7, yet it's one view that's being recorded if I or anybody were interested in statistics of these videos. But it is what it is. And so when I look at that demographic and who's watching and whatnot, when a video is seen 35 or 40,000 times, how many people are actually seeing it? Because like that family of 7, there's 7, but it's tallied as one view. So I think maybe there's double that. Maybe there's 70,000 or 80,000 of members of this Beyond Come Follow Me community. Whatever it is irrelevant. And I hope that you've been able to tell that I don't have any credit as to attracting that many people. It's just that I'm amazed that there's that many people who want to go beyond what's being asked of them by their church leaders to do more to increase that spiritual power. So I think to myself, if there's 80,000 people throughout the world that has such faith and such spiritual power, is there any way that we can harness that power? And as a community, this Beyond Come Follow Me community, is there a way that we can do something incredible with that spiritual power and the faith, both of which you possess? And as I've thought on that, I've come up with an idea, and I'd like to invite you to participate with me in something extraordinary. As a Beyond Come Follow Me community, 80,000 or so strong, each of you with faith and spiritual power, I would like to invite us to unite and harness that spiritual power and that faith and take on a big challenge. Together as a worldwide Beyond Come Follow Me community, I want us to index 1 million names by August 1st. Now I put a deadline on there, August 1st, so no matter when you're viewing this video, whether it's in May, the end of May as I'm recording it, or you don't see it till the end of July, at any time, jump into this challenge. Indexing is simple, it's easy, and it's one of the ways that the Lord has asked us to participate in the gathering of Israel. And with your spiritual power and your faith, I'm confident we're going to exceed that 1 million name goal that we have as a community. So by August 1st, we're going to do it. I'm going to share with you a couple of things. This first is a quote from President Eyring. And President Eyring gave this quote in last General Conference. President Eyring says this: "My purpose today in speaking of temples is to increase your desire and mine to be worthy and ready for the increased opportunities for temple experiences that are coming." I think that's a prophetic statement. He says, get ready because there's going to be an increased temple experience and opportunities are coming. Now, if the temple's being closed, we think, well, when the temple's open, that's what he's talking about. Well, probably, but it wasn't long after President Eyring made that statement that President Nelson stood up and announced the construction of 20 additional temples. So again, be ready for the increased opportunities of the temple experiences that are coming for us. One of those ways that we can get prepared is by indexing 1 million names, as our community is going to do by August 1st. President Nelson says in April 2020 in General Conference, "While worshiping in the temple is presently not possible, I invite you to increase your participation in family history, including family history research and indexing. I promise that as you increase your time in family and temple history work, you will increase and improve your ability to hear Him." Now, I am in no position of authority to make any sort of promise as to what you will get by participating in this 1 million name indexing challenge, but President Nelson makes it clear, after stating that one of the things we can do is index, he says, "I promise that you will, as you increase your time in temple and family history work, you will increase and improve your ability to hear Him." Indexing is easy. If you haven't done it, I'll walk you through. It's so simple. In fact, there's a link below this video. Click the link and it will explain it in its simplicity on how to participate. But in the Church Handbook of Instruction, it says this: indexing is the process of entering information from a written historical record into a searchable database on FamilySearch.org. Those who index make it possible for others to discover their ancestors more easily and perform temple ordinances on their behalf. Anyone can participate in indexing. So here's how I describe indexing. In its simplicity, on a device, your phone, tablet, laptop, computer, whatever you're using, a historical document will be populated. You'll read that document and you'll type in the information into Family Search. You're taking family history and you're placing it into somebody else's family history tree. And then somebody else is going to come along and they're going to find that information, couple it with additional information, and now that name is ready to go to the temple. So by indexing, what we're doing is we're going from ground zero and taking someone on that first large step towards receiving their temple ordinances, their saving exaltation ordinances. And we're going to take 1 million of them, and we're going to do it by August 1st. And so I invite you to participate with me and to be a part of something extraordinary because of who you are with your faith and your spiritual power and this great community that we've put together. Now I'll take you on those virtual tours of some of the historical sites here in Palmyra. Well, here I am back in my office, and in watching the video that you just watched of me standing at the top of the hill Cumorah talking about this 1 million indexing challenge, I realized that I had left out the most important part of making this challenge work, in making it possible for us to achieve this goal of indexing 1 million names between now and August 1st, and that is reporting your numbers. Now, statistics really don't mean a thing to me, and I explained that from the top of the hill, but we need to know if we made 1 million indexes or not. And so what you'll do is when you complete a batch, or whenever you want to, periodically, or if you want to save all your numbers and just report it once at the end of July, that's fine. But whenever you report them, to get your numbers to me, simply add them in a comment of any of my videos. It could be a past video, this video, a future video, because anytime you comment on a video of mine, that comment gets emailed directly to me. So I'll get your number, I'll take it, I'll put it in my spreadsheet, and at the end of July, I'll tally up everything on that spreadsheet, and then I'll be excited to report to you how many names we did above and beyond 1 million, because I think we're going to smash that number. So if we look at, excuse me, before I get to that, the other way that you can report is by emailing me directly. You know, if people don't want to comment and put their name on YouTube and that sort of thing, that's totally understandable. And so if you want to just email me directly how many names you've indexed, then you can send it to my email, which is storiesoftherestoration@gmail.com. So storiesoftherestoration@gmail.com. Now, don't shy away from participating in this challenge, because at the beginning of August, when we announced we've done 1 million names collectively as this community, we're all going to be able to sit back and say, you know what, we were a part of something incredible. 1 million names is a huge goal, but think about it. I just explained how there might be about 70 or 80,000 people that watch this video. And if 80,000 people participate in the indexing challenge, you really don't have to do much more than about 20 or 30 minutes total of indexing work in order for this goal to be pulled off. But in reality, I know that a lot of people aren't going to do it, which is totally just fine. But I also know in reality that there's going to be some people that really get excited and jump on this, and individually they might do 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000 names just by themselves. I also envision a young women's president saying, hey, this might be a great idea for a young women's activity, and collectively the young women in that ward are going to report a couple of thousand names. And so we might get some really fun, interesting stories like that. Some moms and dads might say, hey, we can do this as part of our Come Follow Me lesson. And as a family, you make your own individual goal. As a family, we're going to do 100 names or 250 names, and whatever it might be. And so I think the per person number, in order to get to 1 million, that's why I think we're going to smash this 1 million number. And maybe the next time we do something like this, I'll realize that I'm dealing with a large group, a large worldwide group that's full of faith and spiritual power, and we need to set the bar a little bit higher. I would be thrilled to do that. So that's how you report the numbers. I'll tally them, and come August 1st, I'll have all those numbers to joyfully report back to you. Okay, so I've decided that my walking tour of the sites, I'm going to push to the end of this video. So right now, I'm going to get into section 58 and 59 and the historical context behind it. Now, a lot of our Come Follow Me lessons, it pieces revelations together where the doctrine kind of flows, but the historical context is a little not so much connected, you know, where we focus on a section, here's the history, okay, now we're done with that story, let's move to the next story on the next section. Whereas 58 and 59 are very much entwined because they're given essentially to the same audience. And that's the members of the church who have newly arrived into Jackson County, Independence, the city in Jackson County, Missouri, or Zion, the gathering place as it has now been revealed. And so the history of 58 and 59, I'm going to tell one story that really covers the two sections. You'll see in the section heading there that it talks about the Thompson branch and the Colesville branch, and I want to tell you some things about the Colesville branch. The Colesville branch is awesome. And as you read section 58 and 59, the Lord outlines specific blessings that come from obedience. And remember his audience, the Colesville branch. They were obedient. They were as close to perfectly obedient as you could become. And not only were they doing it individually, but they were doing it as a group, of 60-member branch that was collectively acting as a Zion people. And I think that's why they were called as the first to go to Zion, to establish it, to set this benchmark of how those who will follow, us included, should act, and how we should respond to the call of the Lord to be diligent and obedient and faithful. These members of the Colesville branch, they set a standard for us to follow. And so let me give you the history of who these people are. For that reason, but also for the other reason, that understanding their background, particularly their trials that they went through, and the rewards that the Lord gave them for persevering through those trials out of nothing but obedience to Him and His will, we can then say, I want those same blessings. Those blessings are desirable. So I'm going to be more like the members of the Colesville branch. And I'm going to do everything I can to be as obedient to everything the Lord asks. Now, I'm kind of spoiling the end of the story here, but by telling you this part, but the reality is these people acted in pure faith. Not just a little kind of faith, but pure faith. In that the Lord asked them to do something, they did it without knowing why. And once they were obedient and showed the Lord, we've accomplished what you've asked us to do, the Lord gave them more. They were faithful and obedient in that more portion. And when they were, the Lord gave them a little bit more. And as we're staircasing up on this, here's something I want you to be obedient to, they do it. Here's something more, they do it. Here's something. We also see paralleling to this staircased obedience, staircased blessings, to where you've done this, I'm going to give you this. You've done this, I'm going to give you this. You've done this, boy, I'm going to pour out a lot of blessings here for you. And so we see a pattern being established that can be likened to ourselves, because the Lord has told us through all of Scripture, He's no respecter of persons. And what that means is that He doesn't love the Colesville branch members more than He loves you and me and the members of your branch or ward. It's just that the blessings that are obtained generally come out of the level of obedience. Now, if somebody obtains, now I said generally, and let me tell you why I said generally. It's because sometimes somebody is really faithful and they have a lot of trials. And then you see somebody who's has room for improvement, and yet they seem to get a lot of blessings. And it doesn't quite seem to balance out and be fair. It's hard to accept the reality that the blessings come in response to obedience. But the timing of those blessings isn't always the same. And so on one hand, when we see somebody obtaining the blessings where they have room to improve, and we have somebody who's being faithful and they're still waiting on their blessings, that's where we can only trust in the Lord. Trust in the Lord that the blessings will come. Elder Holland said, and I'm going to butcher this quote, but the point will definitely get across. He said, sometimes blessings come sooner, sometimes they come later, and sometimes they don't come until heaven. And yet the apostle of the Lord promises, yet the blessings will come. And we see that here with the Colesville branch, as we can see it in our own lives today, where the blessings do come amidst the trials. Because as they show their obedience, they get blessed, and then they get knocked back. And then they show their faith, and they get blessed, and then they have another trial. And it's a cycle that they go through. It's a cycle that certainly none of us can escape either. But we keep being faithful, we keep being diligent, knowing that this cycle will make its full course, and those blessings will continue to keep coming back and back. So section 58 and 59. Let's go back for a minute to who the Colesville branch is. I've told you some stories about things that happened to Joseph in Colesville. I've told you some stories about one of the most prominent families among the Colesville branch, the Knights. And I've told you those stories as they've been relevant to the past revelations that we've studied in past Come Follow Me lessons. So let me just gloss over, just do a very condensed, bring you back up to speed, remind you of what we've talked about, and also insert some new information that I know I haven't shared before. And then that way we can know when the Colesville folks hear him through section 58 and 59, we understand their background, which makes the information the Lord's giving to them so much more relevant. And we can say, oh, I understand where the Colesville folks were, and now I see why the Lord is telling them this. And then we can think, boy, how merciful the Lord is, because everything in section 58 and 59 given to these poor, faith tried and tested people must have just been pure mercy to their ears and hearts and souls. So the Colesville branch, how did we find them? Joseph, he was working every job he could as a young boy and as a teenager to try to help mom and dad make the mortgage payment, help put food on the table. You know this. And so one time he was hired by a man by the name of Josiah Stoll, who lived near Colesville, New York. And Josiah Stoll invited or hired Joseph to come and work for him, and he employed a lot of other people, and collectively these hired hands were going to assist Josiah Stoll in hunting for a supposed Spanish silver mine. Spaniards came and they deposited a bunch of treasure supposedly in the hills of Pennsylvania, and Josiah Stoll believed that he was going to find it, so he hired a ton of people to go walk through the hills of Pennsylvania in search for that silver. After a month of wandering around, and I mean, you got to think of Joseph. He's like, okay, I need a paycheck, and this guy's going to just, I'm going to walk around. I'm going to look under bushes and whatever, looking for this silver mine, and I'll get that paycheck. So he jumps at the opportunity, and after a month, Joseph, he approaches Josiah and he says, "There's nothing out here, man. You got to give this up. There's other things that I could be doing as well with my time for a paycheck in other places." And so this is fruitless. And Josiah Stoll saw that, and they gave up the search. But the Lord had much more than a paycheck in mind for Joseph. For it was during this time that Joseph was employed by Josiah Stoll that he was room and boarding with a man by the name of Isaac Hell, who lived in Harmony, Pennsylvania, and had a beautiful daughter named Emma. So while Joseph was working for Josiah Stoll, he was room and boarding with the Hells. He meets Emma, and I've gone into great detail about all those wonderful stories. But we're just piecing the dots together here, getting back to the Colesville branch. Also during this time, he becomes acquainted with the Knight family. Joseph Knight Sr., his wife Polly, they have children. One of the children's name is Newell. I make a note of that because I'm going to come back to Newell here in just a few minutes. And so he becomes acquainted with the Knight family. And the Knights trust Joseph because they see how hard he works and how honest he is. And Joseph begins to trust the Knights for maybe no other reason than he sees that they care for him, and he gives back that love, and there's that connection. There's a friendly bond there between the two of them. To the extent that Joseph does trust the Knight family, so much so that he starts to teach and testify of his prophetic calling, as to the extent of what he knows it to be at that point. Remember, at this point in time, the plates are still in the hill. And despite the plates still being in the hill, not a single character has been translated yet. The Knight family believed Joseph. They believed him. To the extent that on the day that Joseph and Emma went to the hill in September 1827 to get the plates and to bring them home, Joseph Knight was in town staying with the Smith family. He didn't want to miss it. Now, it says a lot. Joseph Knight had a testimony that what was going on was true, and he wanted to be there for the main event. But it also shows the other side of the relationship, that under such circumstances, they allowed Joseph Knight to come and stay in their home. And so this is a great relationship. When Joseph obtained the plates, he moved to Harmony. I've told you this story. And through it all, Oliver Cowdery becomes convinced of the truthfulness of the work. He gains his own personal spiritual testimony. He moves to Harmony, starts scribing for the prophet as they're translating. Well, Joseph and Oliver are so enveloped in the work that they don't have time to farm and do anything else. And so it was Joseph Knight Sr. that provided food for the Smiths and for Oliver Cowdery, and provided essential tools, ink and paper, to be used during the translation process. So he was very involved, had a strong testimony. That testimony wasn't only limited to the Knight family, but for several families in the Colesville area. Now, I might jump back a little bit here. Before Joseph obtained the plates, when the employment with Josiah Stoll ended, Joseph Knight Sr. employed Joseph Smith to work on his farm there in Colesville. Joseph Knight Sr. was very interested in having Joseph Smith, the prophet, work on his farm because of that honesty, that integrity, and that hard work ethic. But I think Joseph really wanted to be in Colesville because it was just a hop, skip, and a jump down to Harmony where his girlfriend lived. And so it worked out perfect for everybody. Well, so the Knights are here supporting Joseph, loving Joseph. The church is organized April 6, 1830, and the Knights are in Fayette at the Whitmer home for that moment when the church was officially organized on that day. The Knights, along with other members of the church who lived in Colesville, they went back to Colesville to live their lives. And then in December and in January, December 1830 and January 1831 is when those revelations came that commanded not only Joseph, but also the Coleville Branch to go to Ohio. So we've got the Colesville Branch. They've been faithful believers for years, but now the church is organized in April. 6 months later, they're told, you got to go to Ohio, not individually, but collectively, this whole branch. The branch president, by the way, the first branch president of the Colesville Branch was Hiram Smith, this branch being the first organized unit of the church. So in late 1830, early 1831, they get the commandment to go to Ohio. And in April, so just 4 months after that commandment, April 1831, they arrive in Ohio. So think of it. You got 6 months, you get that commandment, you get 4 months to prepare, and you're gone. And they left everything. They left extended family, friends. They left beautiful homes and very prosperous businesses. They left it all behind to be obedient to the Lord. And so they did. They moved. But where do they move to? Where do you take 60 people and just plop them down? Well, Lehman Copley, who we've talked about before, invited the Coleville Branch to come and settle on his property. They started to build fences, have farms. fences to keep the cattle in or whatever, and started to build homes and whatnot. And then you remember Lehman Copley, he went with the missionaries, Sidney Rigdon and Parley P. Pratt to visit the Shakers. Lehman Copley left that meeting not feeling very good. He goes back to his farm in Thompson. He says, hey, you saints from Colesville, I want you off my property. And so they get kicked off their property in May. So they go from April 1831 to starting to establish their home in late May, so like 6 weeks or so, maybe at the most. They are living there and they're thinking this is going to be great, and then they get kicked off. So they go to Joseph and say, Joseph, what do we do? I told you last week, Doctrine and Covenants, section 54, addressed that question, and that was given in June 1831. So now we're 14 months removed from the establishment of the church at the Whitmer farm, and now they're called to move yet again, and this time to Missouri. So you're not just going to move to Kirtland or to Mentor or somewhere close by or down to Hiram, where we've now got members of the church. You're actually going to pack up and move another 850 miles to Missouri. That came in section 54. Newell Knight at this time, and he's the son of Joseph Knight Sr. and Polly, his mother, and he's the leader. If he's an official branch president, I'm not sure, but he's at least leading out this branch. And he records, we now understood that Ohio was not the land of our inheritance, the land of promise. For it was made known in a revelation that Missouri was the place chosen for the gathering of the church, and several were called to lead the way to that state, his branch being one of them. They moved for no reason other than obedience. And I'll prove that to you if I need to prove it to you. Section 58. Now we're getting into the revelations that we're studying this week. If you go to section 58, you'll see the Lord in verse 3. Ye cannot behold with your natural eyes for the present time the design of your God concerning those things which shall come hereafter, and the glory which shall follow after much tribulation. Now right at the end, the Lord says, hey, Colesville Branch, you've been through a lot. This isn't going to be the end of it. You've got more tribulation coming. But look at that before, and remember Newell's statement there. He says, and I'm summarizing it now, he says, we learned that we're not supposed to stay in Ohio, we got to go to Missouri. We're not sure why, we're just going to do it out of obedience. And the Lord said, yeah, that's because you don't have any more information other than you need to be faithful and just trust me. Because I'm speaking as the Lord, I know what I'm doing. Ye cannot behold with your natural eyes at the present time the design of your God concerning those things which shall come hereafter. Boy, how many of you would love to have that paragraph in your patriarchal blessing? Listen, I'm in control. You don't know what's coming, but I've got a handle on it, and just trust me, it's going to be all right. I love that. But who needs it in a patriarchal blessing when it's here recorded in section 58, verse 3, and we liken the scriptures to ourselves? That promise from the Lord is available to each one of us. So in June 1831, the 60-member branch, they moved to Jackson County. Like I said, another 850 miles. Fast forwarding now to 1833. 2 years go by, and the Colesville branch, along with all the other members living there in Jackson County, Missouri, are going to be forced through that tribulation that the Lord forewarned in section 58. Through tribulation, they're going to be pushed out of town, out of the county, across the river and into Clay County. And then those members of that Colesville branch, they were faithful, going to far west to Nauvoo and then crossing the plains to the Salt Lake Valley. Joseph Knight Sr. and Newell Knight, they both passed away before arriving into Salt Lake. But that's a very abbreviated story of the start to finish of the Colesville branch, their faith. So now you understand the tribulation they went through, the things they gave up, the things they sacrificed, doing it only because they had faith. Newell says, we didn't know what we were doing. The Lord says, I know you don't know what you're doing, but I do, so trust me. And that's how they acted. And so as you read 58 and 59, and the Lord goes through and says, hey, branch members, you get this blessing, you get this blessing, you get this blessing, you get this blessing. Knowing, like I said earlier, all those blessings are available to you and me as we act in faith, as those members of the Colesville branch did. So let's take a look here in section 58. There's a lot of instruction. Now you're in the wilderness. We've got to set some things up. In last week's Beyond Come Follow Me, we talked about some men who are specifically called to go and set up a store and set up a print shop and become land agents. We're going to purchase land and get it ready for members of the church who are to follow and that sort of thing. And now these members of the church say, hey, what about us? What are the instructions? So 58, 59 give a lot of instructions. 58, though, gives us a lot of tidbits. And my mom, she's so cool. If you go to her house, you see on her refrigerator a bunch of things that she's clipped out of magazines or newspapers or printed off the internet or whatever. And they're on these little cards, and it just covers her refrigerator. And so for her and her children and her grandchildren, now she's got a couple of great-grandchildren, but all of us, we can go there and we can read those cards, and they're just little inspirational tidbits. And that's kind of what Section 58 is, in addition to all the instruction, is just these types of clippings that you would find on Pinterest or wherever to put on your bulletin board or your refrigerator. And so let me give you just some of those little tidbits. He that is faithful in tribulation, the reward of the same is greater in the kingdom of heaven. And I'm just skipping here. They're related, that they're in this section, but I'm not reading verse to verse. And after much tribulation come the blessings. Verse 21 says, let no man break the laws of the land, for he that keepeth the laws of God hath no need to break the laws of the land. In 25, he talks about counsel between themselves, meaning families and each other. Counsel between themselves and me. Study it out in your mind. Talk about it, think about it, pray about it. Counsel, and then bring me in on your counsel. 27, verily I say, men should be anxiously engaged in a good cause and do many things of their own free will and bring to pass much righteousness. Verse 28, for the power is in them, wherein they are agents unto themselves. And inasmuch as men do good, they shall in no wise lose their reward. Verse 42, another tidbit, behold, he who has repented of his sins, the same is forgiven. And I, the Lord, remember them no more. 55, let all these things be done in order. 64, for verily the sound must go forth from this place. The sound, like the sound of the gospel sound being shouted on the rooftops from a trumpet, like an angel, Alma says. For verily the sound must go forth from this place unto all the world, and unto the utmost parts of the earth. And the gospel must be preached unto every creature, with signs following them that believe. And then the promise, and behold, the Son of Man cometh. And I like to think that maybe he's not referring to just his second coming, but as we are faithful and diligent in the things outlined here in 59, and particularly as we get to section 58, but particularly as we get to section 59, as we show our obedience in those things that he commands us to do, perhaps that promise is not just for the second coming, but in response to our current obedience. And behold, the Son of Man cometh. Now let's get to 59 here. In 59, I just had a thought. I'm going to excuse me for a second. I just thought of something I'd like to share with you as we get into 59. I just made a note there so I remember. So 59, this is given on the day that Polly Knight died. It's either the day she dies or the day of her funeral, and which might have been the same day. But either way, section 59 is given shortly after Polly Knight passes away. Polly Knight being the wife of Joseph Knight Sr. So I've told you just very briefly the connection that Joseph had with the Knight family. So not only is the Knight family grieving, not only is the Colesville Branch grieving, but Joseph has a personal connection here as well, and certainly he must have been grieving also. And so with all of that in mind, section 59, verses 1 and 2, is the Lord specifically talking about Polly? Behold, blessed, saith the Lord, are they who have come unto this land, with an eye single to my glory, according to my commandments. Is that Polly Knight? Oh, yes, it was. For those that live shall inherit the earth, and those that die shall rest from all their labors, and their works shall follow them, and they shall receive a crown in the mansions of my Father, which I have prepared for them. Sounds like the eulogy for her funeral. Wonderful promises given to a faithful daughter of our Heavenly Father. Speaking of his mother, Newell Knight said, her only, or her greatest desire was to set her feet upon the land of Zion and to have her body interred in that land. It's kind of, is it funny? Or I was going to say it's kind of funny. It is kind of funny. Polly, when they left Ohio, Polly wasn't doing well. She wasn't feeling good at all. And they didn't think that she should make the journey, but she, as Newell just pointed out, she was determined. She wasn't going to take the advice or counsel to stay behind. She was on her way. And Newell, her son, purchased lumber in Ohio before they left and carried it in his wagon. That lumber was going to be her coffin. They fully expected her to die along the way, and Newell had the means to make a coffin and bury her out on the plains. But she made it because it was her greatest desire to set her feet upon the land of Zion, was the testimony of her son. Okay, so last week we talked about some of those individuals who were called to help establish Zion, and you've got to have some temporal things going on. You've got to have the store, and you've got to have a place to live, and everything that goes beyond the spirituality that's required to establish Zion. You've also got to have all the temporal means to make it happen as well. So those people from last week's episode that I told you about, they're there along with others, many others that I didn't share stories about. But they're there, the Colesville branch is there, the Thompson branch is there, and now we're having more saints coming to Zion. This has been called Zion. It's the gathering place, and people are excited to go. And so they start making their way there. I'll tell you a couple of quick stories. They're very quick here, but Zebedee Coltrane and Levi Hancock were called as missionaries. And they were out preaching the gospel. And this is to illustrate how quickly the saints were descending into Jackson County. And so Zebedee Coltrane and Levi Hancock, they're called as missionaries, and they're to go to Zion, down to Jackson County, and preach the gospel on the way. Well, they get to Indiana. And if you're not familiar with the states, Ohio and Missouri, and I think my hands get flipped opposite when the movie's actually produced. So forget my hands. Look at a map if you don't know. But Ohio to Missouri, and then Indiana is kind of on the way if you're walking between the two. And so they're out doing the missionary work, and they're in Indiana, and they're starting to preach the gospel, and there's some interest there, but there's also some bad guys there, and they say, get out of town. Get out of town before we kill you. And they got that message after having established an appointment with a group of people who wanted to hear the gospel message the following day at 11 o'clock. And the bad guys said to these two missionaries in response to them saying, hey, we've got an appointment. After the appointment, we'll gladly move on. Our appointment's at 11. And the bad guys say, you've got to be out of town by 10 o'clock. And they're like, but our appointment's at 11. What do we do? And they said, 10 o'clock, you're out of here, or we're killing you. Well, Zebedee Coltrane and Levi Hancock, they decide to keep their commitment, their 11 o'clock commitment, come what may. And so they went to the 11 o'clock appointment. The bad guys, of course, didn't kill them. And they preached the gospel and talked about the Book of Mormon. And 17 people desired baptism that day. They baptized those 17 people. And those 17 people started to make preparations to move to Missouri. And so here they come. Parley P. Pratt said that at first, the saints started to trickle into Missouri. But after only a few short months, that trickle turned into a stream of water. And he said they started coming quick. This is foreshadowing one of the reasons that Missourians got upset with the members of the church being there. There were a lot of them, and they were coming fast, faster than the church could handle them. And the Lord had sent some people to establish Zion temporal, for the temporal needs that Zion would have, and the members of the church that were coming were overwhelming the system. Sin is causing problems, but we're not talking about the problems today. Those are going to come later, in chronologically a couple of years later in our Revelations. And so I'm going to tell you all those stories about what caused the saints to be driven out of Missouri, the reasons behind it, their responses to it. We're going to go into great detail another time. But for now, Zion is working. And Zion in Missouri is awesome. So much so that the saints start pouring in faster than the leaders of the church were prepared for them. So Parley P. Pratt, he remembered that as new arrivals purchased lands and built homes, peace and plenty had crowned their labors. And the wilderness became a fruitful field, and the solitary place began to bud and blossom as the rose. There had seldom, if ever, he's talking about these saints in Jackson County. This isn't the story you're familiar with from Sunday school. There had seldom, if ever, been a happier people upon the face of the church of the saints now were. This, what he just described, would last for 2 years until the problem started. But let's stay here in these first 2 years. And we say, Parley P. Pratt talked about a wonderful place. No wonder the saints were begging to move there. This place is awesome. They had found Zion. What caused this to be so? Why was it so wonderful? Why did these people deserve such a wonderful setting as the one Parley P. Pratt describes? Perhaps this setting was created similar to the setting that's described in the first half of 4th Nephi. Perhaps it was established this way because the saints listened to the Lord and were obedient to his counsel that he gives in section 59, specifically verses 3 through 10. I'm not going to read all the verses for you, but let me just highlight a couple of things. Starting in 3, yet blessed are they whose feet stand upon the land of Zion, who have obeyed my gospel, for they shall receive their reward. Okay, you've been obedient. You're going to receive my reward. Let me give you a couple more things to be obedient to so that I can reward you even more. We go into verse 4, and he continues to say of those blessings, and they shall be crowned with blessings from above. You'll receive revelations, and these blessings are going to come to those who are faithful and diligent before me. And then he starts to get into the 10 Commandments, essentially. Verse 5, love the Lord thy God. Verse 6, love thy neighbor as thyself. Don't steal, don't commit adultery, don't kill, don't do anything like unto that. Thou shalt thank the Lord thy God in all things. And I love that because usually commandments are don't do this. Or now the Lord gives us a commandment of something we should do, and that's thank the Lord in all things. Verse 8, thou shalt offer sacrifices unto the Lord in righteousness. And what's the sacrifice? A broken heart and a contrite spirit. But what else can that sacrifice be? What thou shalt offer sacrifice. If you look at that footnote, 8a, Jesus Christ types of in memory. So if we stop right there, in memory, what's some of the other sacrifices that we can do? Here it kind of pairs over with verse 9, and that thou may more fully keep thyself unspotted from the world, thou shalt go to the house of prayer and offer up the sacraments of thy day. So sacrifice of the day, and then we're reading 8a, memory of Jesus Christ. Could it be the sacrament, the ordinance of the sacrament? Could it be the ordinances of exaltation that typify everything of Christ that we learn about in the temple? Everything pointing towards him? Yeah, I think so. But also that sacrifice being the broken heart and the contrite spirit. And now as I've gone into verse 9, let's take a look at some of those footnotes. Thou shalt go up to the house of prayer. Footnote B, assemble, worship, prayer is what it says. So if we do those things, if we assemble to worship and have the sacraments on his holy day, meaning the Sabbath, of course, Sunday, then these blessings can become available to us. And where I live, COVID restrictions are basically done. In regards to church, my ward is back at church full time. Everybody's invited to be there at the same time, and we're there both hours. Last week was the first week
since church closed back on March 13th, 2020, that we held in-person primary. And while the kids were in primary, the adults were in Sunday school. And it was awesome. And so that's where my ward is at. Your ward might be a little different where you're still gathering in your home. But through 2020 up until the current, thou shalt go to the house of prayer. Have we missed out on not being able to go to the church building or to the temple? Well, yeah, there's some things we've missed out on. But have we missed out on what's most important? And that is what's referred to in verse 8. Your self-sacrifice, your broken heart, your contrite spirit, having the sacrament ordinance available on the Sabbath day. Those things, have we lost those? No, we didn't. Because the Lord set up in his perfect foresight to have the Come Follow Me lesson prepared and ready for church at home, to have power and authority established so that we can have this ordinance of the sacrament in whatever conditions we were needing to be in. Ministering was all set up, and so he took care of us. And verse 8 and verse 9, we've really been able to experience that pre-COVID, just kind of generally, well, yeah, of course, we just go to church and we do these things, but boy, we've experienced something over the last 14 months that has really taught us about the love that our Father has for us, and in establishing a way for us to prove to him, as it says in Malachi, prove me now herewith and I'll give you a blessing. We've been able to prove to him that we have had faith, that we have been diligent, like these Coleville Branch members were. Last March 2020, we didn't know what was going to happen. Man, depending on which news you listen to, you were either going to die tomorrow or never die ever. And there's so much confusion and chaos, and yet we just trusted. We had faith. And it was like it said in verse 3 of 58. You don't know at the present time what's going on, but I've got a design, I've got a plan. And stick to the plan, regardless of circumstances. You can't justify not being obedient because of circumstances around you. I just somewhat proved that to you through my little 15-month history lesson, that 8 and 9 we're still able to do, and the Lord can still take care of us. Verse 10, for verily this is a day appointed unto you, speaking about the Sabbath day, to rest from your labors and to pay thy devotions unto the Most High. Now, in your Come Follow Me lessons, you're going to be talking a lot about and studying a lot about the Sabbath day and keeping it holy. So here and beyond Come Follow Me, I'm not going to. Except I do want to point out that phrase, pay thy devotions. When I read that, I mean, you're smarter than I am. I didn't know what that meant. What's pay thy devotions? So I went to the 1828 dictionary, the dictionary that was around when the revelation was received, to find out what pay thy devotions might mean. Well, pay is what we would expect it to be. It's to give something in exchange for something. But the word devotions is defined in this way: a state of being dedicated, consecrated, a solemn attention to the Supreme Being in worship, a yielding of the heart and affections to God with reverence and faith in religious duties, particularly in prayer and meditation. Man, if you can do that, you're keeping the Sabbath day holy. Your Sabbath is a delight. That's a great definition, in my opinion. Well, this is 1831. A few months will pass by. We get into 1832, and we've now got 800 members of the church living in Jackson County, Missouri. And the times in Zion are wonderful. And we will continue to get these wonderful revelations with these great blessings that are promised to the saints. And they'll live in harmony and in as close to a Zionist community as might be possible in these days. And so what happened in 1833, the persecution, let's leave that for another day. Let's focus on what is so wonderful going on in Missouri. Now, so that's section 58 and 59. Now, I'm going to turn over to those church history site tours, on-site tours, just that point of view where you don't see me. I'm going to narrate a little bit, but I'm going to walk you through the sites of Palmyra. So we've got the Hill Cumorah, and we've got the Sacred Grove, we've got the Smith Family Farm. I'm going to take you to Fayette and walk you around the Peter Whitmer Farm. I'm going to take you down to the Priesthood Restoration site and walk you all around the Priesthood Restoration site. I was at all of these sites just 2 days ago. And so just 2 days ago, I met some of the most fun people that I've met in a long time. And there's 4 couples serving as senior couple missionaries at the Priesthood Restoration site that I am now saying hello to. They're now my friends, and I spent maybe close to a couple of hours with them, an hour and a half or so with them a couple of days ago at the Priesthood Restoration site, and that was a wonderful experience for me. So we'll turn over to the sites. I just want to remind you, because I'm not going to come back on and talk and narrate after those videos, but just a couple of things. Enjoy Doctrine and Covenants section 58 and 59, the doctrine that you're going to be studying. And then, of course, remember our worldwide Beyond Come Follow Me community challenge of doing 1 million indexing over the names. We're going to index of 1 million names over the next several weeks until the end of July. Report those numbers to me. We're going to start to see that accumulating number grow and grow and grow until we exceed 1 million names, and it's going to be just fantastic. So with that, pleasure to be with you. But now let me take you over to the walking tour of the Smith family farm.
I'm here at the Smith family farm. It was these 100 acres that Father Smith purchased and moved his family to. They built 2 homes on this property, the first being a simple log home constructed on this very spot. This is the home where Joseph left to go to the Sacred Grove in the spring of 1820 to obtain his first vision. It's also in this home that the angel Moroni appeared for the first time to the prophet Joseph Smith. Near this reconstructed home is the visitor center, where the missionaries greet people and start to tell them the story of the prophet Joseph Smith. Inside this window is the second story of the home, where Joseph would have been praying that night in September 1823 when Moroni appeared. I like to think that out the back door, Joseph went down the steps, through the meadow, and into the grove of trees, which we refer to as the Sacred Grove. From here, we can walk down what was the original road. A main modern road has now been added, of course. The church has maintained the farm the way that it probably looked back when the Smiths were here. This big beautiful meadow where they could have farmed, had orchards, and beyond the meadow, the big trees, is the Sacred Grove. It looks just as it would have looked when the Smiths were here, with one exception. About halfway down this road, when we turn to the left, away from the farm, we see the bright sunlight. But hopefully in the light, you can see the Palmyra Temple. From the Palmyra Temple, you can look and see the tops of the trees of the Sacred Grove. President Hinckley asked that a clear window be on that side of the temple, not so that people could look in, but so that people could be standing within the temple and look out over the grove. As we come to the end of the road now, we come to the location that the Smith family was living during those years that Joseph would annually visit the hill Cumorah. The missionaries will refer to this home as the frame home. It's bigger and nicer than that small log home that they lived in. When Joseph and Emma eloped, they first came here to live. Oliver Cowdery learned of the restored gospel of Jesus Christ while living here with the Smiths. Joseph would hide the plates in the home and around the home. And Joseph would bear testimony of the truthfulness of his work to people who would come and visit here. The missionaries will tell you that this home is about 80% original. If we were to go inside, you'd see the original floorboards, the original fireplace, the walls. One story I love is when Joseph was bringing the plates home, he was being chased by 3 men who attacked him. And he called for help as he was running towards this house. And his mother, upon hearing Joseph, opened up one of those lower windows and saw Joseph running through the meadow towards the house with plates in hand. Joseph's oldest brother, Alvin, passed away before Joseph had the plates. And yet he died with a testimony on his lips of the truthfulness of the work that Joseph had been called to do. In those days, it was common to plant a tree in memory of a loved one who'd passed away. They assumed that this big tree may have been that tree that was planted for Alvin. I don't remember the type of tree, but there's a particular type of tree that you plant in memory of one who's passed away, and that is that type of tree. And the age of that tree also fits the right time frame. And they know that the Smiths had a barn. But when the church purchased the property and started to restore these homes and the farm, there wasn't a barn. It had either deteriorated or somebody had taken it down. So the church started to look for a barn in the area that was from the 1820s. And they found one, this one, in Mendon, New York, which is only a few miles from Palmyra. And after securing this barn and relocating it here, the Smith family farm, it was discovered that this barn was owned by Brigham Young's father. Brigham Young was born and raised in Mendon, New York. So this barn, original as it is, was Brigham Young's barn. This little structure is modern. It's to look like the time period, but there's nothing original about it. Of the many jobs that Father Smith did in order to try to make an income for the family, one of them was being a cooper. A cooper is someone who makes barrels. And this is what a cooper shop would have looked like in the 1820s. We know there was a cooper shop near the home because this was one of the places that Joseph hid the plates. He had the plates buried under floorboards, and he was prompted by the Spirit that they weren't safe. He needed to move them. So he moved them into a higher loft. Shortly after, a mob came looking for the plates. They came into the cooper shop, destroying the tools and the barrels, throwing everything out while looking for the plates. They decided to look under the floorboards. They tore the floorboards up. Unfortunately, the plates weren't there. The plates were simply hidden just above their heads. And because of tax records that the church has discovered, and because of where the log home originally was, it's easily determined that the log home, the first of the two homes that we just visited, was on the far north end of the property. So anytime the boys and Father Smith and the girls would be out working, they would be located south of the home, where I am now. The log home being there in the distance. And we know of the story of Moroni appearing to Joseph as he crossed the fence on his way towards home the night after his 3 interviews. Well, we don't know where that happened exactly, but it would have happened somewhere in this area that you are now. This trail has been put in by the church and modernized just for convenience of passing through the farm to the far west end. At the top of the hill in the distance is the entrance to the sacred grove. This is the top of the hill Cumorah. As you can see, Joseph described it perfectly as being the tallest hill around. On the top here you can see for miles. At the north end of the hill is the Angel Moroni monument to remind us of the sacred things that took place here. So here on the hill, each year, for 4 years, that Joseph was tutored and taught by the Angel Moroni, preparing him for his prophetic calling, his prophet of the restoration. And of course, somewhere here on the hill, Joseph pushed back the stone, peered in, and saw the plates. After those years of tutoring, Joseph was permitted to take the plates and translate them. This monument includes depictions of the 3 witnesses and their testimony, the 8 witnesses, Moroni's promise found in the Book of Mormon, that if you read these things and pray about them by the power of the Holy Ghost, you can know that it's all true. And then a depiction of Joseph receiving the plates from the angel. I'm here early in the morning, and I would bet that today is the day they mowed the lawn. It's turning into summertime and the grass is growing fast. However, the way that you see the hill today, it's not going to be that way much longer. All that grassy area on the face of the hill is going to be torn out and replaced with natural trees. They've decided to bring the hill Cumorah back to its natural state. So after those trees grow, you'll be able to visit the hill Cumorah. And instead of seeing all this grass all over the hill, which has been planted there for the hill Cumorah pageant to be used on, it will be replaced with foliage the way that it was back in the 1820s. So when visitors come after that transformation, they'll be able to hike the hill Cumorah in a setting that was just as the way Joseph saw it when he was here in the 1820s. And with the rising sun, you might not be able to see very clearly that monument, but it's up there anyhow. I'll show you one more thing. There's a trail leading off the back side of the hill. This will lead you back to the parking lot. But back here, the hill has been left in its natural state, where the foliage and the trees grow freely. And so this gives us an idea of what the hill looked like when Joseph was here, and what the whole hill will look like after its transformation. Here at the Whitmer farm in Fayette, New York, is the church building where the Fayette ward meets. And off to this wing of the church is the visitor center. When open, that's where the tours begin. They take you into the chapel, show you a movie, let you play with some interactive kiosks. And then they've got the replica home of Peter and Mary Whitmer over here. I'm here at the site just as the sun is setting. I hope it's light enough that you can see. With COVID restrictions, there's no tours going on right now at the Whitmer farm. And I've arrived late enough that I'm the only one here. Several sections of the Doctrine and Covenants were received here. Joseph and Emma lived here for a time. Joseph and Oliver completed the translation work of the Book of Mormon. Of course, the church was organized here on April 6, 1830. And then somewhere here on the farm, the three witnesses saw the angel and the plates and became the three witnesses of the Book of Mormon. Not only did Oliver Cowdery, David Whitmer, and Martin Harris see the plates and the angel here at the Whitmer farm, but so did Mary Whitmer. In 1980, April General Conference landed on April 6th, 1980, the 150th anniversary of the organization of the church. I don't think you can see in there. All you're seeing is my reflection. But here inside this reconstructed Whitmer home stood the prophet, Spencer W. Kimball, and gave his General Conference talk here at the Whitmer farm on the 150th anniversary of the organization of the church, which at that time, of course, was an absolute marvel that his talk could be broadcast from here throughout the world. Welcome to the Priesthood Restoration Site. A small branch here in Pennsylvania meets here in this beautiful chapel. And on the back end of the chapel, they've built a visitor center for those who are coming to the Priesthood Restoration Site. These two statues remind us of the sacredness of the place, where John the Baptist appeared to the prophet and Oliver, restoring the Aaronic priesthood, and where Peter, James, and John later appeared near here to Joseph and Oliver. From the chapel and these statues, to get to the rest of the Priesthood Restoration Site, you make your way down this path. And where the road forks, if you head to the left, it takes you back down to the reconstructed homes of Joseph and Emma's parents, the Hells. But turning to the right, leads you across this beautiful bridge into a grove of trees. This is the north end of Joseph's 13-acre property. This is the grove of trees in this location as described by Oliver Cowdery, where John the Baptist appeared and conferred the Aaronic priesthood upon Joseph and Oliver and gave them the instructions to go and baptize each other. Coming out of that grove of trees, we'll now take the other direction at that fork in the path. The missionaries here at the Priesthood Restoration site refer to that grove of trees we were just in as the Restoration Woods, it being the place where the priesthood was restored. One thing that amazes me about this site and so many other church historical sites is that the world has really left these special places alone. It was 192 years, almost to the day, that Joseph and Oliver received the priesthood and were baptized. And yet in those 192 years, this 13-acre plot of land has gone completely untouched. In both directions of the property, other property has been developed. There's homes, there's farms, but not this 13 acres. It's never been developed or farmed, as far as I know, in those 192 years, just being perfectly preserved. However, there was a highway that was built running through the original 13 acres. And so to get across the highway, rather than, well, not across the highway, but to get to the other side of the highway, you actually have to go under the highway through this tunnel that the church put together. And now coming out of the other side of that road, we're just about to Joseph and Emma's front yard. These are just restrooms, modernized of course. And this home here is Joseph and Emma's. It's reconstructed. The original home burned in a fire in the early 1900s. But there was a picture of it because it had survived that long. And so the church was able to put it back together just the way it was on exactly the same place as it was. I'm told that when they started to excavate the area to rebuild the home, they found the original foundation stones. I'm also told that some of those foundational stones were preserved and put into this little rock wall. It was here where 15 sections of the Doctrine and Covenants were received, where the majority of the Book of Mormon was translated. Looking up this direction, there's a cemetery, and in that cemetery is buried Joseph and Emma's first child, who they named Alvin. That baby Alvin only lived a few hours. And here's a little bonus. There's some deer crossing the street in front of us. Oh, I'm scaring them. But there they go. This road that I'm walking on now, this is where the original road was. We had Joseph and Emma's home on one side of the road, and just down a little ways, and on the other side of the road is where Emma grew up, her childhood home. And when she grew and married Joseph and left the home, her parents, the Hells, they still lived here and occupied the home. The reconstructed home of the Hell family, where Emma grew up, this is also where Joseph and Emma met for the first time. After they eloped, they later returned back here to Harmony and moved in here with Emma's parents. They lived here for a few months until Joseph and Emma's father Isaac negotiated a deal in which Joseph and Emma would move across the street into that little red home. This is the trailhead that leads to the baptismal site where Joseph and Oliver were baptized in the Susquehanna River on May 15th, 1829. Today, as I'm making this recording, it's May 20th, 2021. 5 days ago, we celebrated the 192nd anniversary of the restoration of the Aaronic priesthood and the anniversary of those first baptisms. We know from tax records that this was Joseph's original 13 acres that he owned. And so, being only 5 days removed from that significant anniversary, we look around and see that exactly what it looked like on the day that Joseph and Oliver received the priesthood and were baptized. I wish my feet were more quiet so you could hear how alive this place is with birds. After receiving the priesthood at the north end of his property, Joseph and Oliver would have walked to the south end of his property, to the Susquehanna River. With the property being rectangular in shape, and the north and south ends being the short end of that rectangle, we know exactly that this is the site of those first baptisms. Near Joseph and Emma's home is a cemetery in which Emma's father Isaac and her mother Elizabeth are buried. These original headstones have been encased in newer, much more improved headstones, and just a few plots this way is their grandbaby, Joseph and Emma's son, Alvin. Likewise, his original headstone is now encased in this beautiful, I'll get my shadow out, in this beautiful headstone.